Whenever Odin decides that he's not worthy, boop, oh, you can't pick it up.
Yeah,
oh,
right.
now you are. Boop. That's maybe, previously when he'd, broken some dishes or something, he's like, oh, now you're not worthy. Oh,
you're not
Dad!
worthy. You stayed out late. Hey, Internets! It's Paul, it's Matt! The Dork Lords. We are here talking about What If? Season 1, Episode 7, What If Thor were an only child? All right, we open with Jane Foster and Darcy in the desert, tracking the site of a suspected alien invasion, much like in the first Thor movie. Only this time, Thor arrives in Las Vegas, so they were off by a few hundred miles or so, I guess. So like, oh, well, whoa, go over there. We end with the Watcher saying, and they lived happily ever after. Wait, what? He does a little wait, what? Meaning he's surprised as well. We get the arrival of what I'll call Ultra Vision. It's Ultron and Vision, the combination of Ultron and Vision that Ultron was trying to achieve in Age of Ultron. He didn't do it there, but in this reality, he pulled it off. Paul, IMDb was right. we threw out that little thing last week, and it was like, oh, okay, that's exactly what this is. All right, hey, so Paul, what did you think,
yes,
good sir, of Episode 7?
I wasn't crazy about it. I was sort of midway about it, really. It really depended a lot on sort of in-jokes, that, in other words, the audience's familiarity with the things they were showing, not so much the execution of it. I mean, it really tried to be humorous, and I think it was kind of humorous.
I agree that it probably, it didn't achieve what I considered, the heights, to me, of MCU humor were, I think, reached in Thor Ragnarok. I thought that was a very funny movie.
Yes.
And there's a lot of characters from Thor Ragnarok in this episode.
Yeah.
But it is not that funny. If it's trying to reach it, it doesn't hit there.
Yeah.
But I did like the spirit of the episode, as you mentioned, if not the execution.
And it made me curious, actually, about Natalie Portman. I think her vocal performance, I've liked it better than her performance as the character in other Thor movies, and I'm hoping it's sort of an indication of her performance in Thor: Love and Rockets.
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. Yeah, getting you confused with a different comic.
So the series has been fairly dark up until now, right? We got zombies. You got that Doctor Strange storyline.
Well, it's gone up and down, right? I'd say the T'Challa, Guardians of the Galaxy one was pretty lighthearted.
You're right. It has not all been. It's not all been dark. Tony Stark hasn't been assassinated in every story.
Right. I mean, you could say that the emotional heart of the T'Challa Starlord episode was stronger than this one.
Yes.
The emotional heart was really about, I guess, his romance or, his mother's relationship with his mother. But really, it was basically just a bunch of jokes.
Right, I feel like exactly. It was a palate cleansing episode, perhaps.
Yes.
A little.
Yeah, I think.
And it's supposed to be lighthearted and silly, and so I appreciate that. And it's a fairly common curveball you see in some series that are dark. I was just thinking of X-Files. There was an episode where Mulder thinks he's accidentally killed an innocent person, thinking he's a vampire.
Oh.
And anyway, but it's all done. It's all played for laughs, and it's a very funny episode. But similarly,
I thought you were going to talk about the one that had was it Pat Sajak, some game show announcer?
Oh, sure.
That was a rather humorous episode, as I recall.
And I think you mentioned once there was the Zeppo episode of Buffy, for instance. It was like a little light departure kind of thing. So that's, I think, the intent here. But I think instead of like a what if, I think it was like, wouldn't it be funny if?
Well,
it's fine. It's not. I mean, they could do whatever they want. Obviously,
yes, you do. You can't stop them, Matt.
Damn it! But I feel like to me, I think the more effective concept of what if is, hey, these characters, the main storyline. Great. We're going to change one thing, and then you're going to see the ripples come out from this one change. And so you'll see the familiar, but it'll also I can do the math I can backtrack this reaction to the change that was made earlier. The things that are happening here, like Darcy marries Howard the Duck, Surtur hits on the Statue of Liberty, Loki goes like, "Ice bros, let's bounce." And I'm like, how does Thor not having Loki as a brother mean that all happens? I can't make the mental gymnastics that all works. And so I feel like instead it was just like, it's just right a thing. And it's, again, it's fine. It's fine. But it's like, I think I would appreciate the writers more if they stuck to an idea of like, we're going to make a change and then we're going to kind of show like the logical progression of that change. That to me, that's more interesting. But I get it.
Yeah. I think the whole premise is what's designed to be silly, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think it could have had a similar comic touch, like that Black Panther Starlord episode, by having a stronger emotional heart, and it could have chose that. You have these rich histories with. I think they could have set up earlier the fact that Loki was in the story, and their relationship less just like, hey, we're just drinking buddies. It's like, why are they your brother and mother? Just because they can party so well?
Like, oh, we're not rivals, so now we can party. I just mentioned how there were so many Thor Ragnarok cameos in this thing.
Yes, there were
one cameo that wasn't in there. And then I thought, oh, well, the title says it all. What if Thor were an only child? We don't see Hela, for instance. So maybe in this reality, maybe Hela's not a thing.
In the characters, in Thor's origin, or at least I should say Loki's origin, the fact that Odin, the reason why he took Loki on in terms of this legend, was that the witch was like, oh, yes, you will take on once he...
Like a prophecy kind of thing.
Once he beat the just like Hamlet, once he beat the ice giants, he took on Loki. But maybe that witch was fine with him.
Right. Yeah. Well, here obviously he has this change of heart, and he decides. It sounds like he initially took the kid, and then is like, and he gives it back. So it takes it
like
for a second.
Babies are really, ice babies especially.
Yeah. Man, a lot of work here.
Yeah,
take it back.
My wife was like, "Forget it." Sorry.
I did appreciate the fight scene between Captain Marvel and Thor. I thought that was intriguing. Particularly I liked it when they were in the clouds, and then you see the light flashing, and it's like a storm.
Visually, it looked interesting to me. Though one of the sort of not frustrating things, but it sort of brought out this issue about comics that, it's interesting to people. No, it's not interesting. People talk about sort of who's more powerful, and you've heard my thoughts on that. And so, is this some sort of definitive? Aha, Captain Marvel is more powerful than Thor. I mean, okay, fine. It's like,
well, was she though? I don't know. I mean, he ended up putting the hammer on her, basically. But.
Yeah, right. Exactly. She couldn't pick up the hammer. Well, and that's supposed to be magic, I guess. I mean, who knows? So she's not worthy. I don't know.
That's a good point. Well, I think that's a great point, because this version of Thor doesn't really seem worthy either, right? He's like party Thor.
No, he really doesn't.
But we didn't have this idea where Odin basically cast a spell, maybe in the first movie, where he's more or less like, you aren't worthy of this, so I'm going to take it away from you, and only when you become worthy will you be able to pick it up. Sounds like Odin kind of made a condition, like, you have to meet these conditions in order to be worthy to pick up the hammer. But he doesn't do that here, right? So that doesn't happen in this world. So theoretically, the hammer wouldn't have a only the worthy can pick me up thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Or it's set
like
this, like, whenever Odin decides that he's not worthy, boop, oh, you can't pick it up. Yeah, now you are. Boop. That's maybe, previously when he'd, broken some dishes or something, he's like, oh, now you're not worthy. Oh, Dad!
You stayed out late.
Yep.
But it
you crashed my chariot,
But because Captain Marvel is pinned to the ground, you're right. Yes. It assumes that there is that onus still on the hammer, and that she's not worthy.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting. Like, oh man, all right. There's a lot of assumptions going on there. Like I like especially the fight in the clouds, just because it suggested that mythological thing of like when early humans looked up in the sky and they saw lightning and thunder, and that's how, in some ways, Thor became a mythological being, the god of thunder. So they were trying to rationalize what they were seeing. And so it's just kind of a fun little tie into like, oh, these are actual gods fighting in the sky. I thought it was kind of cool. So, yay for that.
I liked... So, I was a big fan when I was like in 8th grade or something of Howard the Duck. I really liked that comic, actually. And part of the dynamic of Howard the Duck we hadn't seen is there was a character that was human that he traveled around with, Beverly. And we haven't seen Beverly yet, but Darcy had a similar chemistry with Howard, actually. I think Kat Dennings would have made a great Beverly.
Well, I also did like the line where he's like, he calls her Mrs. the Duck.
Yes.
So that was kind of good.
Yes.
What do we make then of the ending, which, we know that's going to lead to this, the finale.
Right.
Next episode is probably Gamora. I would guess we see some semblance of, I'll call him Ultravision in Gamora, perhaps, maybe at the end of Gamora as well. And then it's like, uh-oh, and then we have the big episode at the end. So why do you think...
it's interesting, though, that if that is the case, because their stories aren't very well connected, so they'll have to establish a connection that we didn't see before. Yeah, Gamora didn't come into the Earth timeline until much later, but then maybe that's it. Well, you'd have to make one change on Earth to have Ultron live and succeed, right? Vision doesn't become Vision, he becomes Ultron, basically. And then later on, maybe he meets Gamora.
Gamora?
Yes,
he
meets them both, right?
Right. Yeah, because obviously, Age of Ultron, if we're assuming that Vision and Ultron combined in this reality roughly at the time of Age of Ultron, that's obviously much later than this episode is showing. This episode's basically around the time of Thor 1, the first Thor movie.
Right, but it's not in that same, right? Because they came through a portal, so presumably they're from another dimension or another
right.
universe.
And he's got the time stone. He's got all the stones, so he can do stuff now. So how do we think that the Watcher was surprised? I mean, the Watcher seems to be when he goes like, wait, what? Obviously that's going to lead to him probably interfering. Somehow whatever Ultron did was so universe bending that it actually caught the Watcher off guard as well.
Right. I guess Vision becomes Ultron instead of Vision. Right? Because that's what that signifies. And then maybe he gets all the stones together and then is able to do those things but not all of them are there. So maybe he defeats Thanos, gets those stones.
Right.
And that's how Gamora comes onto the thing, right? So when Thanos finally comes to Earth, Ultron runs Earth, and he's able to defeat Thanos and get those stones, and maybe that's how it happens.
I got you.
Because one of the things I think they're setting up too is this sort of, as I'd mentioned before, is Ultron versus zombies. And so the whole thing about Thanos being in Wakanda with the gauntlet, waiting for that last, Mind Stone to come to him, then, boom, both of them, both Ultron and the zombie Thanos, are going to other dimensions to take those over, and then maybe that's zombie Thanos' plan. I will destroy half of all the universes.
Now, the only problem, the Vision from zombie Thanos reality, we know that Vision, though, and that Vision did not become Ultron.
Right, I'm just saying.
Not to say this is from another reality, you're saying.
Right, yeah.
He hopped over.
Yeah, that's the war that, at least a different type of war that Kang was talking about, basically. So, you know, them starting to jump in between each other's, you know, universes and causing trouble.
Well, you know what probably happened in that whatever reality Ultravision first came online, probably first thing they did, kill Tony. Because Tony dies in everything.
Yes.
I am now Ultravision. Where's Tony? Kill him. Good.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in the first episode where Tony dies, no one said, "Oh no, they killed Tony!" You know, they could have been doing it all this time. You know,
you bastards!
Oh no, they killed Tony! You bastards! Yeah, that's what they should have been doing all
awesome.
this time.
Oh yeah. So we got 2 more episodes to kill Tony again. So
yes,
here we go.
Right.
Here we go.
It's interesting to see the people who, you know, just got a few lines in this episode, like, you know, Jeff Goldblum coming back to do, you know, the Grand Master, and, you know, Frank Grillo for Brock. I mean, I guess there was another episode that he did that, so maybe he's just, you know, they just had him do a couple of voices there. A couple of episodes.
I did like. I mean, that was maybe one of my favorite little comedic beats. was Jeff Goldblum's when he's doing the DJing and he's like, release the release the foam
or whatever. Yeah.
It was like in the context of the song, like release the foam. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, you're right. People came back for literally a line or two.
I always want to, you know, make note of the people who did not come back, but I felt like the voices are pretty good, like Frigga's voice. And Topaz, who I think we had the actress in a previous episode, it's a different one here, but you never would have noticed it.
Yeah.
And Carol Danvers' voice was fine.
I agree. It wasn't Brie Larson, but yeah, I agree that it was a reasonable interpretation of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, but Karen Gillan was doing a different interpretation of Nebula. It's, you know, it's really showing her skills, actually, as an actress. She was much less like, you know, I will kill you. I am, you know. She was like, okay, buddy, I'm gonna make this pass. Chris Hemsworth, I mean, he really was leaning into, you know, Party Thor there. So
definitely,
it was interesting to sort of hear these performances, and we'll see.
Another bit that I appreciated was at the very end when he's asking Jane out on a date, and his date with her is to a planet of unicorns where even the waiters are unicorns. I was like, okay, all right, that's pretty. That's an interesting planet. Let's go check that one out.
Yeah, see, your estimation of this episode probably would have gone up if we'd seen that planet.
Right, if we'd seen the waiter unicorn planet. Do they have hooves? I don't know. Anyway,
and then you have to wonder if it'd be like, unicorn? You'll have the unicorn. Ah, yes. That's a good unicorn.
Fresh ground unicorn? Fresh ground unicorn? So yes, I like the spirit of this episode. I thought it maybe wasn't as funny as the heights it was trying to reach. And, you know, it came off as silly, but not quite silly enough, perhaps, to give it that status. Yeah. So it's it's kind of in the lower tier of these of the season so far for me. But looking forward to seeing episode 8.
Where would you rank it at the lowest?
I mean,
because you weren't crazy about that zombie episode, so those are the ones that you really haven't liked.
I got you. I think just because it was more plot centric, I think I preferred the zombie episode. So probably this is maybe my least favorite.
Okay.
Again, I'm not like shaking my fist at it, like, but yeah, I guess if you were forcing me to rank, something's got to be 7th. It's probably this one. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, but next one's gonna be number 1 on the list, baby. Episode 8 on its way. Also, Foundation just dropped.
Yes.
And we're gonna be covering that. So you've already seen episodes 1 and 2, yeah?
Correct.
I have not seen them yet. Without spoiling anything, what did you think of the first 2 episodes, good sir?
I liked them.
So we are going to be talking Foundation next week. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul, as always, good sir.
Sure.
And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.